Good evening. Today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. I am Ken Milburn, working on behalf of the Village of Wolverine Lake, and I will be facilitating tonight's remote Village Council meeting. Neither the public nor the council persons are attending this meeting in person. Everyone is participating through the internet or a traditional telephone. Non-council participants are muted upon entry, but will have a chance to speak during public comment. The meeting will also be available on our YouTube channel, which can be easily reached from a link located on the Wolverine Lake home page website. Closed captioning will be available on YouTube about 2 hours after the meeting ends. Messages previously sent to the village by email will be read during public comment. If a participant wants to speak during public comment, please alert us by pressing *9 on a traditional telephone keypad or by selecting the raise hand feature if using the computer/smartphone app. We will individually unmute participants that have signaled a request to speak. Once unmuted, please introduce yourself by stating your name and address for the record, followed by your comment. The microphones of each member of Village Council, the Village Administrator, Treasurer, Police Chief, Village Attorney, and Engineer will be unmuted at this time, and President Brian Nedrow will call the meeting to order.
And a quick one before we get started here. Mike Smith asked if you could let him join.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Looks like he's connecting right now.
Thank
you.
You
There, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to call the Village of Wolverine Lake virtual Zoom meeting Wednesday, April 8th to order. And we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Nedrow,
Here.
Dumont,
Here.
Duff,
Here.
Malik,
Here.
Scott,
Here.
York,
Here.
Sinkowitz.
Mute him.
Is he muted?
He is muted. He is here.
Yeah, okay. Don't believe we have any additions to business. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
No, none.
Okay. Moving on, approval of the agenda. The one thing I'd like to amend on this agenda is a call to the public. And on the agenda, it stated that this was a call to the public only on agenda items, and we'd like to amend that to state that it's on any item for village business or the public would like to speak on. So with that, accept the motion to amend the agenda as stated. That was motion by
I said so
Mr.
moved.
York, second by,
I'll second it.
okay, second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? All in favor? Well, let's do a roll call vote on that, please.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes. As far as correspondence, I don't believe we've received any correspondence, just the road commission report. Received a whole bunch of information on COVID-19, obviously, but at this point, I'm going to move on to our declaration of state of emergency. So minutes of a regular council meeting of the Village Council for Village of Wolverine Lake, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, held electronically pursuant to the Executive Order 2020-15 of the Office of the Governor of the State of Michigan on April 8th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we have all our council members present, none of which were absent. The following declaration has been made by Village Council President for the Council of Wolverine Lake, Brian Nedrow. whereas the President of the United States, the Governor of the State of Michigan, and the Oakland County Executive have all declared a state of emergency, and federal, state, and county orders, directives, guidelines, and recommendations have been issued in an effort to control the COVID-19 pandemic declared by the World Health Organization and Centers for Disease Control. And whereas these orders, directives, guidelines, and recommendations have included closing business establishments, canceling, postponing, and limiting the number of gatherings of the people, and postponing or at least limiting the number of persons in attendance at public meetings. And whereas under the State of Michigan's Emergency Management Act, MCL 30.41D, also under Chapter 210 of the Code of Ordinances for the Village of Wolverine Lake, the Village Council President has the authority to declare a local state of emergency if large-scale emergency situation exists or is imminent. And whereas the Village Council President has determined that in order to provide for the health and safety of village personnel and general public, it is appropriate to declare a local state of emergency. And whereas subject to the regulations set forth in Chapter 210 of the Village Code, and the Village Council President further appoints the Chief of Police for the Village of Wolverine Lake Police Department as the Emergency Management Coordinator for all the purposes related to this declaration, including coordination with and all other federal, state, county, and local governmental entities. Now, therefore, it is thereby declared that 1, there is a local state of emergency in the Village of Wolverine Lake due to the facts, circumstances, and considerations underlying the COVID-19 state of emergency already declared by the President of the United States, the Governor of the State of Michigan, and the Oakland County Executive. 2, the response and recovery elements of the village's emergency operations plan have been activated, and local resources are to be used to the fullest extent possible. 3, notice of this declaration shall be provided to the Emergency Management and Homeland Security Division, Michigan State Police, Oakland County Executive, Oakland County Homeland Security Division Manager, Emergency Management Coordinator. And 4, all declarations and parts of declarations insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this declaration are hereby rescinded. And that's the declaration of the Village Council President adopted by myself, Brian Nedrow, Village Council President, and certified by certification of the clerk. I hereby certify the following is a true and complete copy of the declaration of County Council President for the Village of Wolverine Lake, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, regular council meeting. Council duly called and held on the 8th day of April 2020. That would be signed by Michael Smith, Village Clerk. So, and this is to basically fall in line with, as it states there, the federal, state, and county orders that were put in place earlier this month and last month. So that being the case, we're going to move on to call to the public. And again, this is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any items that they feel they would like to discuss. So we'll open to the call to the public. And at this point, Mike will, or Ken Milburn will unmute anybody that would like to speak. Jennifer, you want to say anything here?
Well, Brian, before you start with public comments, I was muted and I couldn't get unmuted when you were amending the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Ken had to help me out there. But you are going to be, I believe, postponing your public hearing this evening.
Yeah, we were going to do that at that point, but
Right, but one of the items on your agenda is the grant. And
right.
So I didn't know if you wanted to remove that from your agenda as part of your amendment. You won't be doing that this evening, right?
No, that's correct.
I couldn't tell you when that was going on.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So when we get to that on new business, we could just, postpone that as well.
Well, why don't we just do that? Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be fine, since we're already through the agenda amendments. So, okay. Going back to the call to the public then, do we have any public that would like to speak?
Well, real quick, before we get to that point, I saw Michael had his hand up, so I unmuted him. Michael?
I just wanted to let you know that all of the public comment I received was about the grant in emails. So that's kind of a moot point, if you will, at this point. So I just wanted to let everyone know. I did receive, I believe, 3 emails about that.
So then you're just gonna carry those forward into the next meeting when you,
Correct.
and those will be read at your next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so for any participants online that would like to speak that are on the phone, I can see there's at least 1, 2. If you press *9 on your keypad, that will alert me that you would like to speak, and I will unmute your device. For anyone else that would like to speak, you should have a raise hand function located typically down on the bottom. It could be under the more heading, but it's usually somewhere along those lines. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Or a comment, I should say. All right. So we have phone number 5767. Go ahead.
Yeah.
By the way, this is a public call to the public, so please state your name and address and limit comments to 5 minutes or less, please.
Okay. Name is Dave Renwick, 685 Amenia. I was just wondering what happened to the second call to the public. Does anybody, is there just not going to be one all of a sudden?
Well, we combined it into one call to the public, Mr. Renwick.
When did you do that?
On this agenda.
But when did you vote to do that at a meeting? At an earlier meeting, you had voted to have 2 calls to the public. This was not done at a public meeting. This was done outside of a public meeting, apparently.
Mr. Renwick, that's not a legal requirement, the 2 meetings, and it was legal advice that suggested 1 call to the public for all the communities, actually. That's what they're all doing, because this new electronic meeting process is new for everyone, and it just makes it easier. It's very difficult to do call to the public in this way, so communities are all limiting to 1 call to the public. It's not a legal requirement.
So what we do at an earlier meeting does not affect this meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's good to know. Also, you said all of the park stuff is coming off the agenda?
We'll still have the update from the Parks and Rec chairman.
But
And
the improvements to the park?
Correct.
The
Okay.
public hearing that was going to be in place and the grant application discussion will be postponed. That's correct.
Okay, because that seemed like a bad move to have those on the agenda at all. And
Well,
I still would comment that this should go to a vote of the people. I have heard so many times from the council table that you guys have done everything you could to let the people know what's going on. No, you haven't. Putting it to a vote of the people will put it to the people. And everybody that votes will have the opportunity to give their opinion. Your Parks and Rec program right now, what you guys decided to do is based on less than 10% feedback from the public. I'm sure that at a public election, you would get much more feedback than 10% of the village. So I would one more time suggest, put your darn Parks and Rec improvements on the ballot. It's coming up. We're going to vote in, 7 months? So let's let the people decide if they want to put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a concession stand and upgrades to this and upgrades to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Renwick. Is there any other public that would like to speak during the open to the public?
Yes, we have a hands up from Edward's iPad. I'll unmute you now, Edward.
This is Edward Kale. I'm at 2340 Ventura Drive. And I just want to drop a message that I really appreciate you guys going the extra length to do this. And I think you're doing a great job. That's all. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, sir. Anybody else, Ken?
I do not see any others.
Okay, that being the case, I will close the call to the public. And we'll move on to consideration of approving the consent agenda, which is the regular council minutes from March 11th. The warrants from the April for the amount of 113,040.45, and receive and file the department reports, which is from the fire and police departments.
So moved.
What was that?
Mr. Nedrow,
Yes, sir.
Bob Mallett here. I was not at that last meeting, so I'd like to refrain from approving the minutes.
You don't
You're just
need to
gonna-
abstain, Bob. You
Pardon?
you don't need to abstain. You don't have a conflict with approving. the
Okay,
minutes.
that's fine. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Did we have an approval? Do we have a vote
Yeah.
for
Motion.
motion by Dumont,
Second.
second by,
Motion by Duff.
oh, Mark, I'm sorry, Mark.
Second by York.
Hard to see here. Okay. Well, actually, I'll tell you what, why don't we, when we motion like this, why don't we follow up with a name behind so we can follow up with
Okay.
who actually motioned and seconded? That might be helpful.
Sounds
That would be helpful for me, so. That was a motion by Duff, second by York, to approve the council minutes from, or approve the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Okay. No, we have no board appointments, so we'll move along to presentations. First one
One
up
thing,
is,
Brian, real
yeah.
quick, if I could, just a point to Ed. Ed, I have to mute your phone because we're getting a little bit of static from your side. Anytime you want to talk, please give me a hand gesture like this, okay?
Who are you talking to, me?
Yeah, so your phone is very noisy and I have to mute it. So whenever you would like to speak, give me a hand gesture and I will unmute it.
Well, I'll give you a hand gesture.
I think it's understood.
okay, first up, Mr. Powell. Updates on village projects, and we got the Greenaway Drain, McCoy Pond, and pedestrian pathways, et cetera, so.
All right, thank you, council, and you're all doing a very good job, so thank you. The first item is the Greenaway Drain. As late as today, I've had communication with the Eagle, which if you remember, it used to be the DEQ. They are really balking at the ability to put that sediment basin back in. They've gone back through all the pictures and they can easily see that it used to be there. 10 years ago, their pictures show that that basin was actually in place. And as of this year, the aerials show that it has been totally closed over and it is not in existence anymore. So in their analysis, they're questioning me as to provide them when the basin was installed first and when it was last cleaned and whether it was done under any permits. I had to let them know that the gabion baskets and the first time that sediment basin was put in the Greenaway Drain was approximately 30 to 35 years ago. And it was done because virtually after every major rain, the southern portion of Wolverine Lake, Penny Lake Arm would turn brown. So we were getting silt and sediment and debris out of the Greenaway Drain flowing into the southern part of the lake. And I pointed out that after those gabion baskets were put in place and the sediment basin was put in, that we had never had another experience of the southern part of the lake turning brown. I told them that in my recollection, it was cleaned out last approximately 15 to 20 years ago. And it's easily seen by the aerials that it has filled back in and closed off. I have not had a response back. I sent my response to the person that's handling our project, as well as their boss. And so I'm hoping that they will get back and authorize it to be allowed to be started. The contractor is ready, willing, and able to do it as soon as the DEQ signs off on it. I did give in a little bit. The original design that I sent them and asked for a permit was for a basin that was 20 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 6 feet deep. I told them that the village would much prefer to have a smaller basin than no basin at all, and that we would modify our request if a smaller basin would be more acceptable to them. But again, I've not heard back from them yet, and so I wanted to bring that up to the council's attention as to what the status was there. Any questions?
Michael, I had a quick question for you. It's John Scott. Michael, what's the intersection of decision points between Oakland County Drain Commission and obviously the Eagle? Is there any communication there at all, or?
That's a great point. We do have a permit from the Drain Commission to do exactly what we're asking to do. It is their drain. And so the maintenance of that drain is totally done under the jurisdiction of the Drain Commission. However, the impact of the wetlands is where the delineation is. So the Drain Commission would also have to go to the Eagle for permission to do exactly what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
All right, hearing nothing else, the McCoy Pond, and I'm going to preface this by stating that Administrator Smith and I totally agree that the miscellaneous engineering work and construction work around the village is not considered essential. Our office is reviewing septic fields that have to be replaced. That would be essential in the sanitary conditions of the residents. We are installing grinder pumps as part of the essential services and the contractors, and we are working to not delay any of that. However, the actual construction of pathways, even the Greenway drain, the filling of the pond and McCoy, we don't believe that that's essential services, and so we'll be waiting. Even if we were all permitted on everything, we will be waiting until the governor drops or reduces their its stop work order on non-essential processes. Are there any questions on that decision by Mr. Smith and myself?
Nope.
With the McCoy as well, we're still working on the actual agreement with the Killarney residents, just to FYI with that.
I was going to say, at least there's some forward progress.
Correct. Leanne and myself and Jennifer have been exchanging emails with Jennifer Moore and Mr. Valdez there about the property in question.
Okay. Hey, Mike, Mr. Powell, being Mike, as far as the pathway on Benstein there we were looking at, I mean, where does that stand as far as some of the easements and stuff that we were looking at? I mean, that was part of the reason it was put off last fall, was because we were trying to gain easements, and so.
Right. let me quickly go back to the McCoy Pond. One of the issues that came up was the condition of the storm sewer along the north right of way of McCoy. It was not flowing well. It's an enclosed storm sewer system that runs from the pond there on Killarney all the way westerly to Benstein Road, and then exits stage right northerly into the lake. That storm sewer was not flowing very well. And we had noticed that the pond itself had backed up about a foot deeper than it normally is. We called the road commission and asked them to please clean out their storm sewer system. We had a large meeting out there with the road commission and with the contractor, with Andy, DPW, and myself, Michael, Mr. Smith. And the road commission was very adamant that we were not going to be able to use their storm sewer for draining that pond. I took the head person aside and said, you know what? That storm sewer has been draining that pond for over 50 years. And therefore, we have the right to continue using it. And it is how that pond drains. They went back to their offices, obviously did some talking, and about 2 days later, they came out and cleaned out their storm sewer. We received a call from Mr. Valdez thanking us for having the road commission clean that storm sewer, because virtually within hours, that pond dropped 12 inches. And it gave him some peace of mind about his house. So bottom line is we have the contractor all set. We're going to be starting pumping that pond down as soon as the order is removed. I think if you've been by there, you've seen that the trees have dropped into the pond, which is exactly what we wanted to do, to be able to access that pond by dozers, or the pond area. And so we still anticipate pursuing and continuing, but it's stopped right now. And I see that Ed wanted to say something.
Yeah, I did too. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, listening to what you guys were saying, I don't know if we need a motion, but I think a moratorium on all village spending for unessential items or projects should be in place. And, you know, wait until the corona pandemic is under control and people are working and the economy's back. Some of this stuff obviously has already been done, and like the C, there has to be paid. We don't want to take on any undue expenses until we got our feet back underneath us.
So you don't need a moratorium on that. That would not be appropriate, but there are executive orders in place that justify not spending money on non-essential projects at this point.
Good.
So you don't need any further action.
Okay, thank you. And item B, Mike and I had a discussion, so if he wants me to comment on the dry well, I will. If not, he can. That's it.
Thank you, Ed.
All right. Are there any other questions on the McCoy Pond?
Yeah, I think Mr. Malik wants to speak there.
Looks like Mr. Malik.
Okay, Mike, my question is, you mentioned the fallen trees
Yes.
at the pond. Are those trees going to be removed out of there? Or do you plan on filling over the top, which they'll decay and it'll sink later?
Well, it was my recommendation that we know that there are quite a few trees already at the bottom of that pond. And the trees will actually act as what's called a grillage beam. They'll actually hold the surface a little more firm and allow them to get their dozers in over top of those trees. You are absolutely correct. Over time, they will settle. I'm not sure that they'll settle any more than the muck itself will settle, because they'll be pushed down in the muck as well. So it was my recommendation to just fall them and allow us to fill over top of them. Don't think it will damage anything, and it will certainly not impact the usability of those lots. The amount of settlement will be very minor and many years from now.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
All right. There are two pedestrian pathways that I want to give some update on. The first one is the one that council has been looking for a couple of years now, and that's from Clara Miller Park north to Glengarry Road. We have approval from the road commission, a verbal approval from the road commission to do the pathway. The construction drawings for that pathway have been into the road commission for a couple months now, because since we have not been able to obtain the easements between along the west side of the road there, we are keeping that pathway. We've designed it all in the road right of way. That means it has to be within the 33 feet from the center line of Benstein Road. Normally that would not be a problem at all, and the road commission didn't have a problem with it, except for in a number of cases it moved closer than 6 feet to the edge of the road. Their policy is that it should not be closer than 6 feet to the nearest curb, or not closer than 12 feet to the edge of the traveled portion of the roadway. We met with the head guy for the permits department. He authorized us to go within 6 feet of the edge of the road. He understands that the benefit of the pathway far supersedes their policy. However, there are two areas where the pathway actually gets within 3 feet of the edge of the road. They have our drawings into traffic and safety right now. They explained to me, and when I talked to them today, that they're having the same problem that most communities are, that their ability to review plans in a timely manner are somewhat hampered because of the stay-at-home policy. They did assure me they're under consideration, and they'll get with us just as soon as possible. We have all the contractors aboard. We verified that the paving contractor is ready, willing, and able to go. The earthwork contractor is ready, willing, and able to go. It's just a matter of if we started that, the road commission would be all over us. And so this stay-at-home order really is not hampering our timeline.
Okay.
The other pathway is the one that runs between the credit union and the existing pathway on South Commerce Road. That pathway is mandated by the agreement with Redwood. Redwood is responsible to put that pathway in. They're responsible for all costs, and we're actually holding a bond for that pathway to be installed. Redwood came to the village by means of my office. I had a meeting out there with them. They were having problems finding an engineer to convince the road commission that that pathway needs to be put in. In talking to the road commission, it was fairly clear that if it became an official village project, it would be given different consideration than a private sector person putting it in as part of a project. Therefore, we agreed at Redwood's expense, out of the bond money that the village is holding, that we would put it on our title block as the village engineer, submit it to the road commission for permits to have that pathway put in. That'll be a really nice addition to the village, because the Redwood sidewalk pathway ends at South Commerce Road there at Oakley Park Road. And that link has not been put in since their project's been completed. So we're looking to have that put in. As soon as we get that permit, Redwood is ready, willing, and able. They have their contractor board already to put that one in at their expense. And they're also paying my costs out of the bond that the village is holding.
Great.
Oh, great.
Jennifer, do we need a motion on that?
No, actually, and I don't have that file with me right now, but if I recall, the village had acquired part of that property through tax sale, and when they transferred that property back to Redwood, that was one of the conditions of the transfer was that trail. There was several conditions, but I think you're safe in the sense that the village put that condition on for the construction of that trail, and the arrangement that Mike has set up is within that set of conditions.
Okay, thank
I
you.
think you're okay. I don't think you need a motion.
All right, that's A, Mr. President.
Okay, super. And then we got the discussion on the Vita Trail parking lot extension and the drywall installation over on the Glengarry side of Clara Miller Park there. So go ahead, Mike.
All right, as this really consists of two different parts. The first part is the extension of the parking lot to add some additional spaces there in that parking lot. Then the other phase would be the monument itself, the Veterans Memorial itself. Each one has an issue that I'm looking to assist in solving. Currently, the existing parking lot, the stormwater that flows off that parking lot flows into the grass just south of the parking lot. In a normal non-winter springtime, the water sits in the lawn and it only takes a matter of hours for that water to perk into the ground and it disappears. In the springtime or in the wintertime when the ground is frozen, many of you have pointed out and noticed that there's actually a lake, a big pond that forms there on the south side of that parking lot between the pathway and the parking lot. It's a little low area of lawn. By extending that pathway, by extending that parking lot to the west, we are now almost doubling the amount of storm water that's going to be flowing off of that pavement area. So it's going to be my recommendation as part of that parking lot to install a dry well system so that that water will perk away and there will be no ponding of water at all, no matter how big the rainstorm would be. I had a meeting out there with the landscape architect and he was concerned about the storm water that would be flowing off of the monument or the memorial. And he had plans for two things. He had plans of tanks to hold the storm water and then pumps in the tanks in order to irrigate the plants and the vegetation around the memorial. After he and I had our meeting, I hopefully convinced him that the cost of what he was looking to do with having pumps down in tanks and using runoff water to backfeed or to irrigate the lawn and the plants would still need a backup well, because in droughts you still need to have water and you wouldn't have any more water in those tanks. So as part of the parking lot extension, I told him that I could easily design a stormwater system to take care of the area around the memorial. And it would be my recommendation, the electricity is still there. It would be much less expensive, in my opinion, to put a permanent irrigation well down that could be controlled with timers, and you could count on, no matter when it was used, no matter what the conditions were like, to irrigate the lawn and the vegetation around it. So wanted to make sure that council was aware of those discussions. And then as Ed alluded to, he and I talked a little today, and he had a different take on it, which quite frankly, I thank him for, because there is not going to be enough water developed there, storm water, to have to put in big dry wells. So after he and I discussed it, I went back to the drawing board and thought that the type of system we put on the end of Shanken Court, which are small little plastic catch basins tied together with perforated storm sewer set in stone, would be more than ample to take care of that stormwater issue that I summarized, and it would be a quarter of the cost. And so a much better savings. And so I wanted to make sure that you understood what that process was, and get any advice from council.
Okay. Mike also I know we were looking at extending the parking lot that would be to the west,
Correct.
correct? What about extending it to the south? I know there's some trees that are in the way there, but that's where the water's ponding, right?
That is correct. The intent and what has been drawn so far, and I apologize if you haven't seen that drawing, is to extend the exact same parking lot width and everything to the west to pick up the additional parking spaces and not extend it at all to the south.
Right.
Now, we could quadruple the number of parking spaces if we did it to the south and to the west. I'm not sure that you need that much permanent parking, however.
Correct. Yeah, I was just thinking that if you added basically the length for a car onto the south side of that lot, you'd be essentially doubling without doubling the pavement.
You'd have to add about 20 feet. You are
Right.
correct. So you would be flowing it then to the, just making it wider and allowing the cars to pull in to the south as well.
Right.
Certainly an option. It does have me install the storm sewer system probably down under the pavement though, because it removes the lawn area. It gets it much closer to the exercise area and to the existing pathway. So it eliminates the lawn area to hold the storm water while it
Right.
perks away though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just a thought.
That's up
I
to
have a
council.
couple of thoughts I wanted to bring up. At our last council meeting, we talked about an additional, let's say, backup submersible well. And the concerns were that if we put in a submersible well in this area, there's a lot of rust in the water and it would stain the memorial over time. What's the best way to deal with that drought period where the stormwater tanks are empty and we don't have another way to provide water outside of water trucks?
Yeah, you'd have to have a backup well. Now, if you had a backup well in a tank, that iron settles out of the water. And so you could solve it that way. My suggestion would be to put in more of a shallow well so that you don't get down in the iron laden soils down where we pull our aquifer water from, our drinking water from. But that's an excellent point, Mr. Dumont. We could look at that a little bit more, test that water. We'd have to put down a test well, and that could be done relatively inexpensively. And then we could sample that water that's only 30 feet deep instead of 80 feet deep.
Yeah, when's the earliest we can start investigating that?
I would say when the governor's orders taken off.
Okay.
So why is the village going to pay money for that?
Oh, that brings up another excellent point.
That's not within the scope of that project.
That's
That
why
project was supposed to be funded by them, not us.
Okay, so that's why I divided it into two different segments. The monument is absolutely 100% supposed to be by them. So the question that I have for council is, would the drainage of the existing parking lot and the expansion of that parking lot, is that all to be covered by the memorial committee, or?
I would think so.
No.
I don't see why it wouldn't be covered by them.
Well, personally, I think it could be used by anybody, not just people that would come to the memorial. It could be used by anybody that is going to use the park also, so.
But
Yeah.
any of the irrigation system is strictly because we're putting that in. So why would we pay for that?
Could we have Park and Rec allocate some?
Well, I think Mark's going to be talking about that probably in his update also, so.
Can I intersect something
Yeah,
here?
hold on here. We got a bunch of people waving, so let's go to Mr. Malik right first here.
Well,
Go ahead, Bob.
first thing is, we're putting up, hopefully we're going to put up a memorial. There's going to be benches and bricks and flagpoles and different ornamentation of some sort. We don't need flowers and bushes and trees. It's a park area. The rest of our parks aren't irrigated. Mother Nature takes our DPW cuts the lawns, does what they have to do. They don't need that type of thing at that. That's a personal feeling. I just can't see. Then adds to of the village doing business.
Yep.
The memorial has everything it needs. It doesn't need fancy tulips, rose bushes, and all these other things. Personal point of view. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Melick, and we're going to go to Mr. Sinkowitz here.
Thank you. I agree with the last two people. First of all, I think the water table is probably about 12 or 14 feet, isn't it, Mike?
It is, that's correct.
Okay. I think I kind of like the idea of moving the parking lot to the south, be less asphalt, be something that we could do quickly, put some drainage in there, and then have a nice pathway from the end of the park. We don't have to remove any trees or anything, that big pine tree, and run it right to the monument. As far as the monument goes, I agree that this is a project that the Monument Committee took on, and they were going to, village said, we're going to buy a flag and put it up, and the rest is up to you. Now, I think if we build a larger parking lot for residents, period, and if they want to go to the monument, that's fine. If they don't, it's still there. We put in the walkway for them. But as far as the rest of it, they want to put in a watering system or pumps and all that stuff. That's part of their bill. And the other thing is, there are so many different type of plants that are attractive that don't need to be watered every day. And if the lawn, they're cutting all the time. So there's times when there's a little drought, but I don't think putting it well is going to be the answer, because even shallow wells have a tendency to discolor the water. And sometimes it'll even, that's the last thing I think you'd want to do, is to discolor the water. But as far as the bushes and plants and putting in an irrigation system, I think that's out of the question. Put something in there that can take a little bit of dryness, a bush, a plant, or like Mike said, or Bob said, just you've got enough ornamentation in there, you don't need any more. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Scott.
Yeah, let me just make a quick comment. I think all along it's been fairly well defined by the subcommittee and the Park and Rec that the design will include plants that are, if you would, native to Michigan. I don't know where the concept or the discussion of tulips and roses or whatever that need a lot of water and maintenance ever came into the discussion of the design. I would certainly defer to Mark to give better clarification on that. All of the discussion meetings that I have been in have not included that we would have any kind of annual plantings or anything like that, unless it's a project taken on and managed by one of the groups that are affiliated with the Park and Rec department, and that happens to be the local clubs, garden clubs, who have stepped forward and volunteered to do that at their own time. And if there's a cost for the plants, that would be picked up by the village, well, I should better say by the War Memorial Committee. But I think I can say it's been my constant observation that these plants, the plants that are recommended and are part of the drawing, are going to be low maintenance, high drought tolerance plants. So as far as the concept of drilling a well and et cetera, thank you for your comments. And I'm sure there's going to be more information coming on that as we get deeper and deeper from you, Mr. Powell, in terms of cost to move forward on extension of either to the north or to the west of the parking lot.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on that subject at this point? We're gonna have a update from Parks and Rec Chair here coming up on the agenda later on, so I'm sure we'll have some more information on that. Mr. Conduct, did you have anything to say, or?
No, sir.
Okay. That being the case, we'll move along to item C from Mr. Powell, which is payment request for David Smith and Associates in the amount of $1,020.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know Ed was waving his hands there. I don't know if he wanted to go back.
No, I just wanted to make the motion on that. We all have what's in there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me do, and
Second.
Motion by Sinkowitz, second by Dumont to approve payment of $1,020 to David Smith and Associates. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, well, roll call vote, sorry. Almost slipped up again.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
He's waiting, yes, he was muted.
Muted.
okay, Sinkowitz,
yes,
Nedrow,
Yes,
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Thank you, council, very much.
thank you, Mr. Powell, thank you for signing in there, so.
Mr. York, you're unmuted now.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Moving along, recommendations and updates from Parks and Rec Board, Chairperson and Veterans Memorial Committee, Mark Giannini.
Before we move on, can I bring up one thing before Mike Powell?
Sure, yeah, go ahead. Dave?
Thank you. So as you've noticed, there's a lot more action outside. A lot of people riding on our bike paths. And so a lot of people staring at the bike paths. And there's one that had some of the people on the trail concerned, and it's one we've talked about before. I just want to consider it for the future, and that's the path that is east of Bainesbridge, Bisbane and
Bisbane.
Mojito, right where it goes by those pine trees.
Yes.
The roots have got underneath and lifted it in a rhythmic fashion really, but it's fun for me. I'm able to get over the bumps. My 11-year-old daughter likes it, but somebody with small wheels on any type of piece of equipment like medical transportation, I was wondering if there is a way to fix that, and if the tree's not going away, the roots aren't going away. Is there a way to stop the roots from going underneath a new pathway?
I believe
Yes,
Andy is on this.
It certainly is. And what I can do is work with DPW, and this might be an excellent time while we have a contractor that's going to have a paving machine doing the other paving of pathways, which is a special machine in the village. I might recommend that we include that section into it.
Okay.
Great, thank you, Dave. Okay, moving on to Parks and Rec then. Mark?
Oh, thank you. First off, on a somber note, I'd like to, the Veterans Memorial Subcommittee would like to recognize the passing of Jerry Mikowski. She was a longtime member of the subcommittee and was passionate and cared deeply about this project. Her contributions to this community were tremendous, and she will be missed. We're very sorry to hear that she had passed. Additionally, on the line is the project manager for our and member of the subcommittee, Ron Kruger. And with council's permission, he'd like to provide some insight on what was being discussed in regards to irrigation, the plants around the memorial, and the parking lot as well.
Okay, I think that'd be fine.
I'm sorry, the name was Ron Kruger.
Yes.
Right,
So I'll bring his audio and video up. Please stand by.
thank you.
Audio is up and video needs to be selected. Here we go.
Hello, Ron, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, the point as far as the irrigation system, the possibility of the well and so on is to simplify providing water for the plant material. A lot of the plants that I've chosen, or plantings in general, usually only need a fair amount of water in the first 30 to 90 days to establish themselves. Once the plants are established, they really don't need a regular irrigation. You know, unless we come in and add perennials and things like that that are going to require special care, we won't really be in need for, we won't really be in need necessarily for an irrigation system per se. But with all things considered, at one point we were talking about trying to create a water containment system where we can get the water from there as we needed it and so on. And in our discussions, we decided that it would be more cost effective and possibly for future considerations make more sense to get a well. Yeah, I see you. I don't know who that is. And I spoke with Mike Powell about this, and that's one of the things that we concluded on too. And when I came on board of the committee and so on, I thought when it came to the parking area, I thought all that was already approved and anticipated, and that why I put my design together based on where the additional parking would be. Otherwise, if the parking isn't going to be extended, we may have to reconsider where we actually put the memorial. But from the visibility from the road and everything else, where we have it now is really the best spot. Did I miss too much, or does anyone want to comment on what I just said?
I was thinking the same thing that you were saying, Ron, about knowing that you had set up your design based on the initial extension that was planned last year, so that we would have the proper amount of pathway leading to the memorial. And so if it were to be shifted from west to south, it would alter where we would position it, but also perhaps the amount of materials needed to create the walking paths towards the memorial, physical memorial itself.
And I really think we want to have this so it's visible from the road, not just from the people that are walking around. I mean, I really anticipate that this is going to be a jewel. This is going to be really something for people to look at and appreciate. And it's not, you know, at least from my efforts and the efforts of everyone that I have involved, is looking to really put something forward that we're all going to be very proud of and really going to enjoy. So.
Okay. Well, I agree that we'd have to lengthen that pathway out, Mike and Ron. So if we did put it to the parking, extend the parking lot to the south, but just looking at trying to solve a water problem.
Well, we're extending the parking lot to the west.
Yeah, but what we proposed earlier, so.
Right.
Possible. So anything else, guys?
Yeah, if I could just chime in on that for a second also. While you're here, was not the reason we extended it west to incorporate at least 2 handicap parking spots and make the access to that Veterans Memorial, particularly by wheelchair-bound veterans or other people who might want to visit, much easier, because the length of the pathway from the end of the parking lot to the memorial would be much shorter? Wasn't that part of the thinking, and wasn't that part of your drawing, Mr. Powell?
Yes, it certainly was. But really that was kind of at the council's direction and the committee's direction. From an engineering perspective, we can design the handicap spots in either direction, south or west. As I told Ron, my job is to enhance the committee's and the council's position. So I can really make anything happen, whatever council decides.
Okay, that's a good point, Mr. Scott. I hadn't heard that, so that does make some sense that way. But Mr. Sienkiewicz would like to speak. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, in the past, when we've got maple and new trees in the park, it's not a big deal for the DPW to fill up that water tank, and they use under pressure, put the nozzle down 3-4 feet underneath the, so we don't lose a lot of evaporation and inject the water to the root of the plant. So I think as the gentleman had mentioned about watering them, once they get rooted in and they're in place, they pretty much are self-caring for themselves. So I just wanted to bring that up, that it's something that we've done in the past, and I don't think it would be a big deal to do it in the future.
And that's something we already have in place also, so that might make some sense. So, yeah, I think that sounds plausible.
That's it.
Mark, anything else to add, or?
Well, I can go ahead and just introduce the motion that was made to recommend that council accept the bid of $23,806.76 by M&D Lawn and Landscape to complete the hardscape of the Veterans Memorial, with 10% of the bid, or up to $2,400, be made available as a good faith payment to secure a job date after July. I can tell you, from Ron's explanations, that they come highly recommended. He's very confident that we can work with them effectively and that they will do a very good job in doing this the right way.
Do you have that sum of money in your coffers?
No, it will come, as I said, by May.
And you're close. I mean, from what I understand, you're about $1,800 short at this point, right, Mark?
Yes, sir. That sounds just about right.
And the other comment I'd like to make on that too is this bid was substantially more in line with what we have dollars available at this point. The other bids were quite a bit higher. One thing that does concern me, especially with what's going on at this point, is the fact that they're looking at 10% upfront money, so $2,400. I mean, I know it's the Veterans Memorial Committee's funding, but that's a lot of money to outlay at this point.
So moved.
Mr. President,
yeah,
Bob Malik, I'd like to make a motion that we give them $400 in good faith, because nothing is going to develop until August, maybe, at the rate this pandemic is going. And in good faith, there's nothing to be bought. All right. So that would be my
well, I guess I at this point, I was just hoping for comment from Mark and Mr. Scott, if you had any comment regarding down payment money, or.
Well, that was my motion.
There was nothing listed in their contract regarding a down payment. We, as a subcommittee, thought that would be effective in order to secure a date in our desired range and lock it in.
I would not recommend right now that we give anybody any money until we know what's going to go on, because that company very well may not be in business by the time they're allowed to work.
Agree.
That's ridiculous.
Did anybody hear me move the motion forward?
Well, I'd withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Mr. Nadro, could you give us an encapsulation where we're standing on the table right now? Is there no motion then on the table?
There is no motion from what I understand.
Okay. And and was it Mr. Malik, as I understand it, feeling maybe a dollar amount of $400 might be better?
Yes, that's what I said, but I withdrew that, John.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with accepting the bid with no money down.
Well,
I would second.
I would second that.
Okay, that's a motion by York, second by, was that Mr. Malik?
That was me.
Well, I started, but
Mr.
whoever.
Mr. Duff. Okay,
me.
second by Mr. Duff to move forward with the motion.
Mr. Nedrow?
to-
Mr. Nedrow?
Yes,
Mr. Sinkowitz was moving his hand. Has a question.
let me finish with the motions and then we'll move on to discussion here, because we're going a little crazy here. So the motion is on the table to accept the bid for $23,806.76 with no money down. That was a motion by Mr. York, seconded by Mr. Duff. So we have motions on the table, discussion.
all right. Let me ask a question maybe of Jennifer. We do this in the real estate business all of the time. Is it not possible to escrow those dollars to indicate to M&D that the monies have been, in fact, their bid has been accepted? And what we are willing to do is escrow $400 or some amount of the amount of that contract pending reaffirmation that I think everybody on council is sort of worried about who's going to be around. We don't know who is going to be around. It at least puts forward the good faith, and it does not put any money at an at-risk situation.
Would you escrow your own money, John? No.
What's that?
Would you escrow your own money? No.
Well, we're acting on council, not on behalf of council's dollars here. We're acting on behalf of the dollars that have been contributed, not by council, not by anybody on the council, and nobody other than those who have taken the faith forward to put some $23,000 in an account right now. I'm just saying to segregate those monies away so that this very low bidder can at least be standing aside and saying, okay, they have money set in escrow. It's nothing more than moving the money from one account to the next within the control of the village.
So legally.
Do I use escrow accounts? The answer is yes, I use them all the time.
So legally, you could set this up in escrow. However, and I didn't print off the bid documents, so I don't have that right up here in front of me right now. I don't even know what they will accept. You're awarding the bid, but maybe they're requiring a 10% deposit. And if you're awarding the bid and not giving 10%, then maybe they'll not accept that award. We could, because they're not going to be doing this hardscape work, right? I mean, nobody's doing this work right now.
Well, that's what we want to make sure they're there in August or September.
I mean,
can I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Kruger.
Yeah, I just want to say there is nothing in the proposal that they sent where there was a requirement of a deposit. It was something that was mentioned during our committee meeting, that it would be a good faith effort on our part to offer the to offer a 10% deposit, which in my industry is commonplace. But also, we all know that we don't know where things are going to end up when this all ends. You know, landscape contractors in general, they're chopping at the bit to get started. They're going to, whenever they finally get started, they're going to be 5, 6, 7 weeks behind when they put their first shovel in the ground. So, you know, what we're trying to do is get a place in line. And, you know, he may be fine, doesn't need a deposit. You know, our word is good enough that we're giving him the project. He's not going anywhere. You know, he's an established large company that, you know, is well routed. Unless he decides to retire, he's not going anywhere. So I'm not concerned about that. None of the people that were bidding the project, I made sure that the people that I chose were good quality established companies. So, you know, I mean, we can award him the bid and then wait and deal with deposit or whatever, wait for him to ask for it, you know, and then look at it from that perspective.
Well, I think that, you know, that sounds favorable in my stance. I mean, we have a motion on the table stating that there's no down money, but if they decide as a committee, they want to put some earnest money down at a later point, they can always come back for approval on that, I guess. Mr. Sienkiewicz had his hand up. Ed, go ahead, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. President, that, you know, that I'm sure the contracts have been signed, and if it turns out that someplace down the road in a month or so, they need a good faith of $400 or $500, something to show that it's something that we're going to do is fine. But I have a question for Mark. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You guys have been, this committee's been together for what, 2 years? 3 years?
Longer than I've been a member of Parks and Rec, so I would say 2.5, 3 years.
All right, so let's say 2.5, 3 years. One of your contributors gave you half of what you've got. What is the total cost of this project? And how are you going to get the money to make it go?
The total cost of this project, well, our goal total was 60 to 80,000. That was built around certain premise of long-term sustainability. And with the short-term goal was between the hardscape and the flagpoles and everything else was more like 35. And we are comfortable getting there. And as I said at the previous meeting, we do have a large donor who is going to come in with 5 figures to extend that, and that is still on. And as I said, that will be here by May.
Great.
Well, the way things are, you know, I would like to, at least before you break ground or hold off, see that money come in and have it in your account. So
Yep.
when you start, it'll get finished.
Well, we are, as we said, this is at this point, we are accepting the bid of which we essentially have the money for.
Right.
I think we're about 1,500 short. And then it was always our intent to do it essentially in phases. But we will have more than sufficient to do the full first phase without any concerns by that date.
And what date is that?
By the well, when they can break ground. And so we were targeting August, July, but again, that's very much dependent on the pandemic outcome and everything else.
You're still looking by early fall at this point, right, Mark?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be by then.
That would have the first phase completed with the hardscape and possibly all the flagpoles in.
Malik would like to talk.
Yep.
So in other words, right now for what you have, you need about another, what, $25,000, $30,000 to do your phase, what you want to do?
Not really. No, I would drop that significantly. We're probably closer to 15 to 20.
Okay, let's cross more one time. So another $20,000. So you've got enough money for half the project and the other half you don't. And that's my concern, is this is something that you guys want to take on by yourself, get donations. I thought you guys were going to do fundraisers and ways to make money. And what happens if this guy, whoever your donor is, his business needs that money more than you do, then what?
And we have a half-finished park.
This
Well,
donor is not going
hold on
to
here,
fall
guys.
through.
Hold on here.
I promise you that 100%.
Let's go to Mr. Kruger. He's got some comments here. So
Hold on, Brian, before we go to him, I think the problem is Ed has a unique way of saying it. What we need is to see a plan of how they're going to raise the money to finish this project, because that we're going to do it in phases. This could drag out for 10 years if we don't get the funding. Let's see a plan of how you're going to raise the money and when you're going to get the money. Then we can make a decision as council of when it's going to get done.
well, I think from what I just heard on this is, from what Mr. Giannini said, is the fact that they're about 1,500 short for the hardscape. Is that
Yeah,
correct,
but that's
Mark?
not a plan for the
Hold on,
rest.
hold
Sorry,
on,
Mr.
hold on,
President.
Walt, hold on. Let me finish, okay?
Yep.
So that's correct, Mark, right? About 1,500 bucks short on a hardscape.
Correct.
In addition to that, they have a large donor that's going to put 5 figures into it, probably around $12,000-$15,000. Is that correct? Somewhere in
Yes.
that area?
That's about right.
Okay, that's over and above the hardscape right now. So that should be sufficient amount of money to put the rest of the flagpoles in. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
So that's essentially taking care of the first phase of what you're looking at doing, and anything over and above that down the road would be starting your next phase of whatever that is, correct?
Correct.
So
Okay.
that being the case, does that happen to change some of the comments that we've heard?
I'd like to say it changes it, but as a village, we are a business and we owe it to the community to show the community the plan. We have not shown them the plan. we're gonna raise this much money by now, which we have, and this is what we're gonna get done by this date. We plan to raise this much money by this date and finish this, and then everything's done by a certain date with all the money. I have not seen that, and I literally think that we need to show the community that.
I think Mr. Scott had a comment.
I
John?
was not at the meeting, but did not the council have in front of them the base hardscape plan, which if we reflect upon what's been going on in this discussion, everybody was wanted to make sure that whatever was done would be somewhat of a minimal design. That is to say, it would include all of the bricking. It would include the placement of the American flag. It would include the placement of the benches and etc., and a path to extend to whatever council decides to do with the parking lot. So it would be, in essence, a single flag, hardscape, completed memorial, net of vegetation and the other flags. Is that a fair flagpoles? Is that phase one, what we're discussing, Mark? That we would have the complete hardscape in, and this company, which by the way, I'm looking at the contract and it says initial deposit date given and payment method. And then it starts start of project deposit, the date and payment method. So they are looking for some sense of commitment. We wanted to give them that commitment, given the cost is so much below the other bids, and B, we're trying to hold on to them in a very difficult period for everybody, including landscapers and the rest of what we're facing here. But I don't think it was going to be any earlier than what you did say, Mark, right? Expectations of August, September.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. Mr. Malik would like to speak. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, gentlemen, let me back up. We have a motion on the floor
Right.
about not sending money. I think as a tax-paying citizen before a council person, we need to let this committee have the time to present us with something. But in good faith, I think as a council, we should maybe send a letter to M&D and tell them we do accept their bid for after the pandemic has been nullified and we can go on to normal way of life. And as a citizen, I'm willing to wait for the committee to come up with additional ways of raising money. They've got the money to put in a flagpole and a bench, okay? And that's a start, if that's how you want to look at it, bare minimums. But let's get the ball rolling. We're going to debate this till hell freezes over. Excuse my English, okay? But it's time to go on. There's a motion on the floor, and I'd like to call for a vote.
Very good. Roll call vote, please. And this was for a motion to approve the bid of $23,806.76 to M&D Lawn and Landscape to complete the hardscape on the Veterans Memorial Committee, or Veterans Memorial. Okay, so roll call vote.
Scott,
Wait a minute. Hold on.
What's up, Ed?
Yeah.
What about the deposit? No deposit?
No
This
deposit.
was no deposit, correct. That's what the motion was.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
well,
Are we ready?
since Ed threw- let me add one more thing. Can we send them a letter stating we will accept their bid?
Well, actually, the committee should do that, Bob.
Okay, well, so as a council, we can direct that committee, I hope.
Yep.
I think the committee will do that anyways, I would guess.
Yeah, I would hope
All
so.
right, thank you.
I think we're fine with the motion the way it is. I'm sure the committee
All right,
will.
call for the vote.
Yep. Okay. Roll call.
Scott,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow. Nedrow,
Oh, sorry. Cut off there. Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yep.
Malik.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Looks like we're finally moving ahead on this project. That's Great news. Okay. At this point, we are on item 12, which was going to be our public hearing for the trust fund grant development for Clara Miller Park. And at this point, we're going to be postponing that to a later date. We did get some information yesterday from our grant advisor that, that it was going to be moving forward. We were going to have this because they were not going to postpone the grant process, but Mr. Smith had advised us late yesterday afternoon that we could postpone this as late as an August meeting. So is that correct, Mike?
Yes, yes.
So at this point, we'd like to postpone the public hearing until a council meeting where we can hopefully have everybody and public included on this. And that's just for this is just for the grant application. So
yes, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to postpone that.
Mr.
I
Duff,
second that motion.
I will.
Motion by Duff, second by Malik to postpone the public hearing on the trust fund grant. Roll call vote, please.
Is there discussion?
Discussion. Okay, sorry, Dave. Yep.
No worries. I wanted to ask Michael Smith if this could injure our ability to secure funds through our grants.
This timeline, no. I turned in the application by the April 1st deadline. I do have subsequent things that I might have to readjust or amend by May 15th, but this is a part of it, and she stated this will not affect any of that. However, if we don't have matching money put into our next fiscal year budgets, that of course will.
Okay, thank you.
Michael, can I ask an extension of a comment on that? What is it going to be, a 1/3, 2/3, or a 50-50 grant? And do we have any idea what the range of what those monies might be?
I applied for the 300,000 maximum matching grant to put forth $100,000 in the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget, and then 100,000 in the 2021-22 fiscal year budget. They always said that the more you can get, you have to have at least 25% matching, but if you can go above that, that helps get you more points in the system when they evaluate it. So that's what we've kind of been doing. I know in the capital improvement, when I talked to my contact about kind of allocating about 100,000 in the past, and so we're just going to continue with that in the next 2 years. But as we go through this next budget cycle, that will of course be under further discussion.
So every 100 would give us 300 total spending capability if we
It's a total of 500,000 for the entire project.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank
200 from us, 300 from them if we secure that match.
Okay. Quite a substantial amount of money. Thank
you. Sure is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, following up on the roll call vote.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Mont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yep.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Finally, moving on to new business. First one here, A, is resolution of approving 2020 grant application submittal to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for Clara Miller Park Improvement and Renovation Project. And again, at this point, I think we should postpone this until we have a meeting where we can sit down and discuss this, hopefully in public forum at the Village Hall. So
move.
Mr. President, I make a motion to postpone new business.
Okay, I think Mr. Duff beat you to it. Mr.
Yeah,
Malik,
well,
we'll offer
I'll
you a
take it.
second if that's okay.
If it's okay with Mr. Duff, I'll do it.
Okay. It's a motion by Duff, second by Malik to postpone approving of the grant application submittal. So roll call vote, please, unless there's a discussion on this. Hearing none, roll call.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Mont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. New business item B, resolution approving a letter of understanding by and between the Village of Wolverine Lake and the Village of Wolverine Lake Department of Public Works, Local 2720, ASME Council 25. Michael Smith, if you could divulge on this a little bit.
Yes, this is just standard practice that our attorney Jennifer's and I exchanged, and she reviewed it. We wrote it to make sure that they continue to get paid, and there's certain guidelines in there so they know that they're all on call basis. I believe Andy's on the line here if you have any questions for him.
He's not, actually.
I think he's
There are some people online. I think I did see Andy momentarily. Would he be 788 possibly?
He's
I-
717-280.
yeah, that's Andy.
Yeah,
If you had any questions, but this is just for the AFSCME. This is what a lot of other communities are doing. We wanted to outline things because they had questions and concerns about it. And since it's the union, Jennifer did review it and we send this to them. We need approval from you, and Carlos and Doug, union rep, know about this and they're fully on board with the language that's written.
I'd like
So
to make
moved.
that we approve that.
Okay, who said so move first?
Walt.
If you could
That's probably
follow up with your name behind it, that'd be helpful.
Me, Walt.
Okay, sorry, Walt. That was a motion by Mr. York, seconded by Mr. Duff. Any discussion?
Andy, you got any comments?
I don't really.
Yeah, I read through this. It's just basically it's a formality. And setting in place where we were at with this whole pandemic and how everything's working between the DPW and the village. So
Yeah, I read it and I feel the same way.
yeah.
Agreed.
Okay.
It's pretty standard language moving forward with everything, things have been happening.
Okay. Roll call vote.
I think
I think Mr. Sinkowitz is trying to get your attention.
Uh-oh. Okay, sorry about that.
I heard
Ed?
I've been waiting so long. Hey, I got a question on this. If something had to be done in the village, like whatever, can you bring somebody back for a day or 2 days?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's been discussed and in fact, that's already been done. Is that correct, Andy? I mean, we've had a couple call outs for various items.
Absolutely.
That were needed. And I believe your department has no issue with doing something that's essential or necessary.
That is correct, Mr. President. We actually have been in there 6 or 7 times during the time frame that this has been going on. Just checking emails, computers, voice messages, making sure we are checking critical infrastructure, which would be roads, drainages, and potable water. Everything's working in the proper order. I stopped by the pump houses either Thursday or Friday. I've asked our next on-call DPW personnel to go in and make a rounds through the parks to make sure that the trash cans are empty, so we don't have an issue with sanitation on park trash cans.
Thank you. Okay.
Am
Ed?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, are the pumps on the lake?
No, actually, no. But we, with the last night's rain, Ed, I would suspect I'm going to go in tomorrow and check emails again tomorrow morning. But I would say that by tomorrow or by this weekend, we should be about 5 inches below normal summer.
Okay.
Last time I checked, it was 7 inches.
And we're going to be getting some more also. So
Now, the other question I wanted to bring up is last fall, and I took our administrator and I showed a problem and I thought it would be fixed and it still hasn't been. But when they came and put down the riprap on Marchar, the DPW, and they brought a loader in, they made about 6 huge ruts, at least 8 to 10 inches deep and 2 feet long. Because they didn't wait till the ground got furrows in. They thought it would be better to do it while the ground was still soft. So it's a mess. And everybody is coming down here and kids are trying to fish and people walk down there with the dog. And I'll tell you what, somebody's going to stumble in that hole and you're going to have a problem. And I think if you can get a truckload of dirt and a shovel and 1 or 2 people there to fill those holes in, I think that would be a very good thing to do before there's a problem.
Okay. Ed, could you adjust your phone just a little bit?
Adjust it how?
You were looking at your chest. And hopefully it didn't go any lower.
Oh, you did go. Well,
there you
I
go.
turn it this way,
That's better.
Put it back where it was.
Hold on, Bob.
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't know why when I talked to him a couple times when doing the leaf, oh yeah, we're gonna take care of it, and it hasn't been done. But they're very, I know the administrators looked at it and those holes are definitely booby traps.
Okay, well, that we've got a motion on the table.
Yep.
We can solve that under administration later on, so.
Fine.
Okay, roll call vote for this motion. For the letter of understanding, please.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
Scott,
Scott's muted.
Uh-oh.
I'll unmute him now. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
York,
Waltz.
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow.
Yes, thank you. That was almost painstaking, wasn't it?
Yeah. Hey, Mr. President, can I interrupt just 1 minute? So
Yeah, go ahead.
Ken, is there a way to adjust it so my house has a shallow well and it kicks on sporadically, so I mute myself, but when I mute myself, I need you to unmute me.
Yeah, that's correct. It's important for me to have the control over the mute just in case we have any discrepancies.
Okay. All right. No worries then. I'll just wave my
Okay.
hands.
Yeah, just wave at me.
Very
It doesn't
good.
do any good.
You've been getting enough of those. Okay, moving on to item C. Discussion on canceling events through the month of May, which include the Easter Market bus trip and the spring garage sale. And I think
Mr.
that's probably
President.
pretty much a given, but go ahead, Mr. Scott.
I'm going to have to leave the meeting. I have 9 people waiting for me to sing happy birthday to my niece, whose birthday's party is just starting virtually. So with council's pleasure, if you don't mind, I'm going to go sing happy birthday to my little granddaughter.
Enjoy your
Okay.
time with your
And
family.
happy
All right,
birthday to
John.
me.
Happy birthday to your granddaughter.
Guys,
Happy birthday.
thank you.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Yes, sir. Okay, back at it.
Yeah, 1 down, 6 to go.
Yeah,
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that we do that. I think that it's prudent for us to do it at this point in time.
I totally agree.
I second that, Mr. President, Bob
Motion by
Miller.
Duff, second by Mr. Malik. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Dumont.
Is that Dumont?
Yeah, that was Dumont.
Yes.
Okay, great. Motion carries. Item D, set topics for the April 22nd. That would be this month work
Pass.
session.
Pass on that.
Well, Ed, I think we really should move forward with a budget work session. We have not had a budget work session yet this year. And I know Mr. Smith and Mr. Condek are going to be looking for some input as far as our budget goes.
Are we
Obviously,
gonna do it like this?
Yeah,
It would
Yeah.
have to be this forum, yes.
yes.
That's not gonna work. Well, everybody's talking when we have a budget session.
Well, I think we can,
All right,
Do
whatever.
it. It might take a few minutes longer.
I think we could facilitate it that way.
And then, well, the big thing too is about the goals. We need to talk about goals which are incorporated into that. I know Mike wants to talk as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say, Mike, was simply that this would be a goal session. Our actual budget work session would take place at our second meeting in May.
Right.
There are some things I can present that should work in tandem with some of the goals that we discuss on April 22nd. But just so there's no misunderstanding, it's not.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I was a little misconstrued as far as what the topic was, but it meant we need to move forward with the budget type issues. So yeah, goal setting was more in line, that's for sure. And we have not done that this year yet.
No.
We were shooting for February, then March, and then everything came unglued here. So I still think it's very important that we do look forward with a goal setting session.
Motion that we set that topic for goals on April 22nd.
Second.
Motion by Duff, second by Dumont to hold a April 22nd work
Virtual.
session on goal setting
Awesome.
in this same forum.
Yep.
So,
Roll call, please.
Mr. President, so as of right now, this electronic meeting forum is only approved through the 15th.
Oh.
So the governor is expected to extend that, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
Correct.
Right.
Well, can I add a friendly? If the governor extends it, we continue on with it in this manner?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Sure.
Ken, are you available that night?
Well, it was the 25th?
22nd.
22nd. Yes.
Okay.
Point of order, let's call for a vote.
Yep, roll call, please.
Malik,
Yes.
York,
Yes.
Sikowitz,
Yeah.
Pedro,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff.
Yes.
Okay, we got a work session scheduled for April 22nd.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I think we missed an item. Item C, discussion on canceling events.
Oh, we did do that.
Do that.
Oh, we did do that? Oh.
You even motioned on it too, yeah.
That's when the pump was on.
We had a vote on it even, yeah.
No, I didn't motion on that.
Oh, you didn't motion, but you voted on it, yep.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay, not a problem.
Well, that's what happens when you look at the lake.
Yeah.
Well, I can't see
Okay.
it now. It's dark.
Item 14, I don't believe we have any pending business. So we'll move along to update from the police chief.
Good evening. I want to take a few minutes to update you on some police personal matters that have taken place since our last council meeting. And just wanted to throw this out there so the public does know that we actually did have one officer who had to be quarantined for 10 days after being exposed to COVID-19. This officer returned to work with no symptoms after being cleared by a doctor. We also had another officer who did have symptoms of COVID-19. However, that officer was tested and received a negative test result and was able to return to work after 4 days. We have not taken any action to fill the vacancy in the police department as of yet. We will need to wait for the governor's executive order to expire before we can interview candidates for that position. But our officers are taking the required precautionary steps to ensure the public's safety as well as the safety of our own personnel. And we have implemented a check-in procedure that involves screening every person who enters the building of the village complex. This also involves taking their temperature as well as filling out a short questionnaire. I wanted to say thank you to the Oakland County Department of Homeland Security and the Emergency Management Operations Center. Thanks to them, we have the proper amount of personal protective equipment on hand, and they were very quick to supply us with our requested materials. I also wanted to take a minute to thank the village residents who've come together to assist the neighbors with the common needs and trips to the store, as well as checking on your elderly neighbors. I think we all have learned that in times of crisis, we as a village do all come together to help serve each other. And lastly, thank you all for your support during these trying times. We're going to get through this. Stay safe, stay home, stay positive, test negative. Thank you.
Chief, if I could, I just wanted to also give a shout out to the company that came in and donated their time to clean up our village hall and our village police equipment. And they were gonna come in at a substantially negotiated minor rate of, I think, $500, I believe is correct. And when they came in and finished the village hall after about 5 hours of fumigating the place and making sure everything was cleaned up, I believe it was, they said, no charge. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Future Visions Environmental out of Waterford. Ron Rodriguez is the owner's name. He and another person spent 5 hours, and they were very, very detailed. They emptied our trunks, sprayed everything down, put everything back, did a fantastic job, left no residue whatsoever. They did our offices, the DPW, Village Hall, conference rooms, downstairs, the locker rooms. They did it all. And we're very appreciative of that. It gave us all a little bit of peace of mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just wanted to make sure that we included them. I mean,
Thank you.
that was
Thanks
a
for the
great thing
reminder.
to do.
Mr. Sinkowitz?
Yes. First of all, I want, and the chief knows this, to thank Sergeant Marasco. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on this.
We'll
He
blame
came
him.
over and tutored me at least 3 times, but we got it done. And the other comment I want to make is, I guess I'm going to use how proud I am of our police chief, that we were constantly getting information on our cell phone, information about what was going on, who was where, what was sick. It was really, really very, very professional. And it kept me informed, and I'm sure everybody else who got one. And it's nice to know what's going on, because, you know, people walking by and they know I'm a councilman, or any of you others, you know, hey, you can talk intelligently. I've always said, I just don't want to find out in a grocery store about something that happened, or in the park. Did you know that this or this? But John, very professional. I'm very proud of you, and you're a hell of a chief.
Thank you.
That's
Okay.
it.
Moving on, Treasurer Conduct.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. President. If any of you are curious about the financial situation that we find ourselves in, let me give you a sort of thumbnail sketch. As far as property tax revenues are concerned, we're all set for fiscal year 2020, which, as you know, ends in 3 months, June 30th. The valuation of property on December 31st, 2018 determined the value that we had in our tax bills that went out last summer. And we already know the value of property that was set on December 31st, 2019, and that will impact our bills that go out in July of 2020 for our fiscal year 2021. As far as the near term, remember, Oakland County kind of works on a 20-month sort of rolling average sales study. I think at this point, it would be way premature to speculate as to the future of the real estate market. I don't see any crash like we saw in 2008 and 2009, when we lost about 22% of our taxable value. But again, that's short term for the foreseeable future for the next couple of years. One area where we will take a hit, we, as you may know, budget about $400,000 annually in state shared revenue. That's money that largely derives from the sales tax, and we get paid that on every 2 months. So, for example, at the end of April, we'll get a payment that represents the activity in January, February. That's before everything kind of went kaflooey. So I don't expect that payment will be impacted at all. On the other hand, the subsequent 2 payments, remember, this is, again, the distribution of sales tax on a per capita basis. I don't know what's going to happen there. Assuming the worst, we're probably going to be out $130,000, and that's not something that the state is going to make up. They can't. They never collected it, presumably because there were no sales to tax, or very little, or comparatively fewer than what we'd experienced going, through February. So that's one of the reasons you have a general fund surplus or fund balance. It's to weather little storms like this. Ours will be more than ample to do that. And I think we're going to be okay through the end of the fiscal year, not as well off as we probably were originally projected to be. I also think we're going to see a reduction in the gas and weight tax that the state's collecting at the pump. Remember, this isn't a function of the price of gas. It's a function of amount of gas sold. It's per gallon. So with people driving less and not as many, I think the registration fees are going to remain the same. But again, that tax at the pump is going to be much lower. And that'll also be reflected in this fiscal year and next. Do I have any official projections from the state at this point? No. But it's almost common sense to assume that just by way of the way it's distributed, that it's going to impact everybody and we wouldn't be exempt from that. So a storm is coming, we'll weather it. It's not going to be insurmountable. It's not a disaster circa or a la the 2008, 2009 dip in taxable value. So I think we're in good shape. Everybody, by the way, employees are paid or will be paid tomorrow through their work or through the pay period that ended on April the 3rd, which was last Friday. So everybody is continuing on a full pay basis. That's expected to continue unless we hear something different or to the contrary. But so everybody's made whole, and there's some peace of mind there for our employees.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, President. And so I have a couple things with the website. There are some updates that I have there that are out there. If anyone has any questions with anything, if I can find the link, hold on. Oops. Where am I at? So if you're on the site, it's under latest news. I've been trying to update as much as I can. There's a little spot. It's down there, has the coronavirus. So I've been doing any updates that I have from the CDC, the county, the state, the federal government, whatever it is, you can go there. And then we've been doing those features where you can get all the information there because there's been a wealth of information that has been shared. We also have, where's my document? We've had social media postings, utilizing Facebook and Twitter to update people as best as we can. So share out there, share away as best any information I get, I've been sharing. As we stated earlier, we do have on-call services with the DPW. I've been keeping in contact with DPW and Andy and the other employees about upcoming projects. I know some of the questions have probably been about grass and seasonal issues that we'll have to address as the weather is changing. The grass will start growing. And we will have the ability to do, if we continue on with the stay home order, we will be able to have the one man on, the one mower or whatever it is, and we'll work through that to make sure to keep up with any of the rotation with projects for safety precautions and whatnot. We've had a lot of questions about inspections and permits. We are continuing on a process where they can submit applications, but we are, of course, delaying any inspections at this time. Unless it falls into an emergency category or falls under the category of essential. We have that question that's come up as to it's debatable what actually is essential. Tim, our building inspector, is reviewing on a case-by-case basis with us. And of course, if there's a hole in the ground or something, he will review that. But we want to make sure that we uphold to the orders and don't put our inspectors into harm's way. I did receive notice about the goose nest egg destruction permit. I'm waiting to hear back from the governor's office because when I talked to the DNR, they said that they are not allowed to perform that annual task right now because that's still under that order. But I'm waiting to hear back from the governor's office to see if we actually can, since we utilize our own volunteers. The Zoom virtual meetings, thank you again for doing this tonight. There have been concerns brought up about the security of Zoom, as you've probably been reading about. As of right now, this is the tool we are using, but of course, we can always look into something. I know Ken is handling this quite well. There's GoToMeetings, Teams, or WebEx, or there's other outfits out there, but I believe it's run pretty smoothly tonight. The May events, we will notify the participants that signed up for the Easter market, and I believe work with Mike to refund the money. I'm not sure how many have already signed up. Waste and recycling, that question's come up. I've not heard of any changes as of yet, but of course, if I do, I will notify everyone in the village. As of right now, it's still staying the same. I know in other communities, waste management, they've changed things, and a lot of the other companies, but I've not heard GFL changing anything. Bonfires have come up. Please be considerate. Of course, the ordinance does not allow for open burning of yard waste. Can have recreational bonfires, but please again be considerate because more people are home and some have health issues and asthma and whatever like that, that if you have the constant burning, just be considerate of your neighbors. I believe the executive order, like Jennifer stated, the legislature passed it to extend through April 30th, but we have not heard the actual governor's order yet. And I, of course, want to thank the police department as well, and all the grocery workers and all the frontline people out there, the essential workers that are working day in and day out, that are helping us get along in this this time. I appreciate DPW, all the fellow staff members here, new council members. Thank you to all the residents that have seen helping. I've seen them drop off some cookies and other things to help out, kind of really stepping up to help each other out, as the chief stated as well. We're all in this together, and I just want to say happy Easter. And maybe, I guess some residents in other communities, they've ended up coming together, and I don't know if it's ever been discussed here, to have a neighborhood Easter egg hunt where kids could kind of go around, maybe in your front yard. I don't know. Just other communities are starting to do that to kind of come together. I know there's been searches and things like that. So I think I've seen that on the other Wolverine Lake Facebook page as an option. But just have a wonderful Easter weekend and be safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Council comments. We were going to start with Mr. Scott since he's bowed out. We'll go to Mr. York.
I'd like to thank the village staff, Mike, Paige and Tabitha for continuing to support the village, the DPW, everybody, the chief and your staff. You guys are doing a great job, and thanks for the updates. And it looks like things are pretty stable in the community, which is really good. And the other thing I'm happy to see is everybody is out. They're out walking around, riding their bikes, taking their kids out. It's so great, right? Kids are off the video games. It's just great, and I love it. I hope it continues after this pandemic is done. And thanks to everybody for being part of this great community.
Okay, Mr. Sinkowitz.
I too would like to thank all the employees and how everybody's stepped up to the plate, and nobody's seems to shy away from having to do a little bit more. And I hope that everybody who's celebrating a religious holiday this week or weekend gets to enjoy it some way, somehow with their family. God bless everybody.
Thanks, Ed. Mr. Dumont.
Yeah, along with what Walt said, I've been out and about almost every day for the last 3 weeks. And I want to thank the residents because over the last 3 weeks, their behavior has changed significantly. 3 weeks ago, very few were social distancing. I was out 2 days ago, and almost everybody is social distancing. Whether it's a person on a bicycle that has the skills to be able to pull off the trail, as oncoming hikers, bikers, or similar pass and get back on the trail. I've seen walking people just step off to each side of the path so that they are at least 6 feet apart from each other, if not far further. And I appreciate that change. And it's difficult to break old habits, and it's uncomfortable to adopt new habits that is preventing something you can't even see. So thanks to everybody in this village, our residents specifically. And I thank you guys, of course, as well.
Thank you. Mr. Duff.
I would like to thank the police chief for all your efforts in terms of keeping us informed. Thank you to all the village employees in terms of doing their job, and again, a transition from a norm. And again, thank you everybody that is an essential worker. So happy Easter, God bless, and stay home, stay safe, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Malik.
Yeah, I have a couple things. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone involved. And also, Ken, thank you for putting this together because it has really worked out very well. And I think anybody that's been online paying attention can see that we put a real effort into making it work. And chief, administrator, all the staff, everyone involved, thank you again. Mike Powell, thank you for your work. One other thing, Mr. Dumont commented about the neighborhoods and people. I think it's all fantastic. I've never had in 40 years so many waves of people going down the street. The only thing I hope when the pandemic is over, that people take the time to introduce themselves to those people they've been waving to. It is a neighborhood community. We should all get to know each other. And thank you again to all.
No, thank you, Bob. Okay, I generally don't say a whole lot. I've got a little bit more on my plate tonight. So I wanted to reiterate what Mark Giamini said earlier. And on March 21st, we lost another great Wolverine Lake resident, Jerry Matkowski. Jerry was a past council person a couple times. She was our franchise representative for many years and was involved with the historical committee. She and her husband, Gene, who passed in 2017, were longtime village residents. Both were very involved in the village and will generally hugely be missed. Just want to continue to stress for everybody to use caution with this terrible virus. Hope that all our residents, along with all our employees and consultants, continue to be safe and healthy throughout this ordeal, and hope that we can return to life back as we know it in a more normal pattern that we've had in the past. I personally want to thank all the healthcare professionals, first responders, and all the essential people that continue to work so hard so we can have food, gas, electricity, and other services so we continue our lives. I especially want to thank Chief Ellsworth and our police department for the service through this troubled time. May God bless this village. Thank you for all involved with this meeting. And I'd accept the motion to adjourn.
Hey, one more thing. Can I add, please? Is there any way the paperwork that we have needs to get disposed of in any way? Do you want to pick it back up to go through the village, or can we just do away with it? in a proper
Recycle.
manner? Okay, well, that's why I'm asking. There's a lot of
Oh, that's
names
a
of
good-
different things. That's why I asked the question.
Okay, Ed,
Motion to adjourn.
I figured that was coming. Second? Motion by Sigwood, second by Duff. Roll call vote, please.
York,
Yes.
Sinkowitz,
Yes.
Nedrow,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Malik.
Motion
Yes.
carries. Good evening. all.
Great job,
Thanks much.
council.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
You did a fantastic
Easter.
job.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Ken.
Happy
Okay.
Passover too.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Bye.
Aye.